I am Emma.
Standing here in front of a packed auditorium at the Women in Tech conference, looking out at the faces in the crowd, I'm reminded of a pivotal moment in my career. It was a day that changed everything, a day when I finally found the courage to stand up for myself. I vividly remember that conference room. I was pressed against the wall, practically invisible, watching my 6 months of blood, sweat, and tears being presented by people who couldn't even explain the basics of the algorithms I'd painstakingly developed. There was Tom, my boss, beaming with pride as if he'd written every line of code himself. As you can see, our team at Novatech has developed the revolutionary approach, he said, gesturing to everyone but me. I'd spent the last 9 years at Novatech, believing that hard work and dedication would eventually be recognized. I was the only female senior developer in the company, a token in a male-dominated environment. I'd learned to work twice as hard just to be considered half as competent. But the Orion contract was different. It was a $6,200,000 opportunity to develop an AI-driven supply chain management system that could save Orion's international operations millions more each year. When the project first landed on our desks, no one wanted it. It was too complex, with too many unknowns, and an impossible timeline. Tom practically threw the brief at me during a staff meeting. "Emma, see if you can make sense of this mess," he said, his tone dismissive, as if he expected me to fail. My male colleagues exchanged looks that said, "Better her than us." For 6 months, I lived and breathed that project. I canceled my vacation to the mountains, missed my best friend's birthday, and worked through a bad case of the flu that had me coughing up mucus into tissues hidden in my desk. I built the system from the ground up, solving problems that industry experts had declared impossible just months before. The night I finally cracked the distribution algorithm, the one that would reduce Orion's shipping costs by 43%, I was alone in the office at 2:30 a.m. I called my dad, my hands shaking with excitement. He didn't understand the technical details, but he understood my relief. "They'll have to see your value now, sweetheart," he said. 2 weeks before the presentation, I noticed things starting to change. Tom began scheduling alignment meetings about the Orion presentation, and somehow, I was never invited. Jake from business development started asking detailed questions about my code. Lisa, who hadn't contributed a single thing to the project, was suddenly reviewing all the deliverables. I told myself it was just final preparations, that everyone was making sure they understood the solution before the big presentation. Then I found the slide deck. I hadn't been asked to prepare it, which should have been my first warning sign. I opened it out of curiosity one late night, and my blood ran cold as I scrolled through 45 pages that presented my work without ever mentioning my name. The presenter notes showed that Jake would explain the technical architecture, Mike would walk through the implementation approach, and Tom would handle the innovative algorithm, the crown jewel of the entire solution, my crown jewel. The next morning, I confronted Tom. I tried to keep my voice steady as I pointed out the oversight. "Emma," he said, not even looking up from his phone, "this is an executive presentation. We need our strongest communicators handling this. You're more of a behind-the-scenes person, aren't you? You're not comfortable in the spotlight, but it's my work," I said, hating how small my voice sounded. He finally looked up, his expression a mix of condescension and false concern. "It's Novatech's work. We're a team, remember? And teams win together. Besides, you're not polished enough for the C-suite yet. The way you dress, your presentation style, it's just not executive material." I walked out of his office feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. 9 years at this company, a degree from MIT, and I wasn't polished enough? Back in the conference room, Orion CEO, Lily Thompson, sat at the head of the table, flanked by her executive team. She asked incisive questions that my so-called team fumbled through answering. The distribution algorithm, the 43% reduction, looks incredible. But how do you account for weather pattern disruptions in the South American corridor? She asked. Tom looked at Jake. Jake looked at Mike. Mike cleared his throat. "Well, we've integrated several variables. We're using a modified Bayesian approach." I couldn't watch this farce any longer. I interrupted from the back of the room. "The algorithm adapts to meteorological data in real time, with fallback protocols that trigger alternative routing based on predictive modeling rather than reactive adjustments. The room went silent. 20 heads turned to look at me, most of my colleagues wearing expressions of shock or anger. But Lily was simply curious. "And you are?" she asked. Before I could answer, Tom jumped in. "That's Emma, one of our developers who helped with some of the coding elements." Some of the coding elements. Something inside me snapped. 6 months of work, my innovation, my solution, reduced to some of the coding elements. "Actually," I said, stepping forward, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips, "I designed and built the entire system architecture. The distribution algorithm is based on my research from last year's white paper on adaptive supply chain dynamics. I wrote every line of code in the core modules and personally solved the South American weather pattern challenge you just mentioned." The silence that followed was deafening. Tom's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. Lily set down her pen. "Interesting. So you're the architect of this solution?" "Yes," I said simply. "Then perhaps you should be the one presenting it," she said, her gaze shifting meaningfully to Tom. Tom laughed, actually laughed. Emma tends to exaggerate her contributions. She's valuable, but this was absolutely a team effort led by our senior staff. I felt dizzy, like the floor was tilting beneath me. 9 years of being underestimated crystallized in that moment. I'd been naive to think this time would be different. Lily was watching me, not Tom. Her eyes were sharp, evaluating, as if she could see right through the dynamics in the room. "In that case," she said, still looking at me, "I have a simple request. I'd like Miss Emma to walk us through the technical documentation. Right now." Tom's smile faltered. We hadn't planned to get into that level of detail today. "I insist," Lily said, her tone leaving no room for argument. If this was truly a team effort, then anyone on the team should be able to explain the core architecture. She turned to me. "Miss Emma, would you mind?" For the next 45 minutes, I walked through every aspect of the system. I explained the architecture decisions, the trade, offs, and the innovations that made it unique. I answered questions with a confidence born from knowing every inch of what I'd built. No one interrupted. No one could. When I finished, Lily nodded slowly. "Thank you for that clarification." She turned to her team. "I think we've seen what we needed to see." I thought that would be the end of it, a momentary victory, but ultimately meaningless. Tom would find a way to punish me later, and the system at Novatech wouldn't change. But as the meeting wrapped up, Lily approached me directly. "Miss Emma, I'd like you to stay behind for a moment." My team filed out, Tom throwing me a look that promised consequences. When the room had emptied except for Lily and her CFO, she closed the door. "That was quite illuminating," she said. "I have one more question for you. The contract we're about to sign with Novatech, whose signature will be on the technical specifications." I don't know," I admitted. "Probably Tom's, as the department head." She shook her head. "That won't work for us. The person who designed this system needs to sign off on it." "That would be you, correct?" "Yes, but..." "No buts. If you built it, you sign for it. That's non-negotiable for us. Accountability matters at Orion." She handed me her business card. "My direct line is on the back. If there's any problem with this request, call me immediately." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the meeting in my head, the look on Tom's face, and Lily's unexpected intervention. By morning, I'd made a decision that had been 9 years in the making. I dressed with care that day, not in the muted colors that helped me blend in, but in a bright purple suit that I'd bought years ago and never had the courage to wear to the office. As expected, I was summoned to Tom's office first thing. He was already mid-tirade when I walked in. The most unprofessional display I've ever seen. "You undermined the entire team, made us look disorganized." I told the truth, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "You don't understand how this works, Emma. This is business. No one succeeds alone. You're part of a team and..." "A team that was taking credit for my work," I interrupted. His face darkened. "This attitude is exactly why you're not ready for client-facing roles. You're too emotional, too focused on individual recognition." Lily Thompson wants my signature on the technical specifications, I said. That stopped him cold. What? Orion requires that the person who designed the system sign off on the technical specs. That's me. Tom's expression shifted from anger to calculation so quickly, it was almost comical. Well, that's just a formality. You'll sign as the technical lead under my overall approval. I took a deep breath. I'll sign it, but only under certain conditions. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's not how this works. It is now, I said, pulling out a document I'd prepared the night before. These are my terms. First, my role as lead architect will be formally acknowledged in all project documentation and communications. Second, I'll lead the implementation team. Third, I want a 16% raise effective immediately, which still puts me below what Jake and Mike make. Tom's face flushed. This is extortion. This is negotiation. I corrected. You need my signature. Orion won't proceed without it. And unlike yesterday, today I understand my value. I could fire you for this, he threatened. You could, I agreed. But then you'd have to explain to Lily Thompson why the person who built the system she's investing $6,200,000 in is suddenly unavailable. I don't think that conversation would go well for you or Novatech. He stared at me with naked hatred. I always knew you'd be trouble. Women like you always are. I smiled then, feeling something shift permanently inside me. You haven't seen trouble yet, Tom. This is just me finally taking my place at the table. You have until end of day to accept my terms. After that, I call Lily directly. I left Tom's office with my legs trembling, but my head high. Inside, I was terrified. 9 years of keeping my head down, of being the good employee who never complained, and I'd just blown it all up in 20 minutes. My phone buzzed as I reached my desk. A text from my sister, Sarah. Did you talk to him yet? What happened? I texted back. I did it. Gave him my terms. Now we wait. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again.
Finally, holy shit, Eminência.
I'm proud of you. Terrified, but proud. Tom didn't keep me waiting long. By noon, HR called me into a meeting with Karen, the department head, and Tom himself. Their faces told me everything I needed to know before a word was spoken. The conference room felt cold, almost clinical, as I took my seat across from them. Emma, Karen began, her voice professionally neutral. We've reviewed your requests regarding the Orion project. My terms, I corrected quietly. A flash of irritation crossed her face. Your terms, then. While we value your contributions to the project, your approach to this situation has been inappropriate and borders on insubordination. Tom sat silently, a small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of his mouth. However, Karen continued, given the client's specific request and the timeline constraints, we're prepared to make some accommodations. The accommodations were a joke. They'd acknowledge me as a key technical contributor, but not lead architect. I could join the implementation team, but not lead it. And they offered a 6% performance bonus instead of the raise. This is our final offer, Karen said, sliding a document across the table. We need your signature on the Orion specs by end of day. I looked at the paper, then at Tom's smug face, then back at the document. 9 years of moments like this flashed through my mind, watching male colleagues with half my qualifications get promoted over me, sitting in meetings where my ideas were ignored until a man repeated them, being called difficult when I was simply being thorough. No, I said, pushing the paper back. Those aren't the terms I outlined. Tom's smile vanished. For God's sake, Emma, be reasonable. I've been reasonable for 9 years, I replied. It got me nowhere. Karen's professional mask slipped slightly. Think carefully about what you're doing. This is a career-defining project. You don't want to be remembered as the person who derailed it over ego. I almost laughed. My ego? After watching my entire team puff themselves up with my work. My terms stand, I said, standing up. You have until 5 p.m. I walked out, closed the door behind me, and promptly locked myself in a bathroom stall where I had what can only be described as a silent panic attack. What was I doing? I was risking everything: my job, my reputation, my financial stability, all because I couldn't swallow my pride one more time. But it wasn't pride, was it? It was dignity. It was truth. It was finally acknowledging that I deserved better than being used and discarded. At 4:50 p.m.,
M.
as I was contemplating calling Lily Thompson, Karen appeared at my desk. "We've reconsidered," she said stiffly. "Your terms are acceptable with minor modifications." She handed me a new document. They'd agreed to acknowledge me as lead architect and to let me lead the implementation team. The raise was 13%, not 16%, but it was substantially more than their initial offer. "We expect you to handle this transition professionally," she added, a warning in her tone. "No gloating, no creating division in the team." "I'm always professional," I said, signing the agreement. "That's never been the issue here." That night, I celebrated with Sarah over takeout pizza in my apartment. "I can't believe you actually did it," she said, raising her glass of wine in a toast. To my sister, who finally grew a spine. "I've always had a spine," I said. I just stopped hunching. "So, what happens now?" she asked. "Won't Tom make your life hell?" I nodded slowly. "Probably. But something's changed, Sarah. I'm not afraid anymore." The next few weeks proved me both right and wrong. Tom didn't make my life hell. He made me invisible. He spoke around me, through me, over me, but never to me. In meetings, he acted as if my chair was empty. The only acknowledgement of my existence came in the form of impossible deadlines and midnight emails demanding immediate responses. Meanwhile, I received a formal acknowledgement as lead architect on the Orion project. My name appeared on all the official documentation. I built my implementation team, deliberately including 2 junior female developers who showed promise but had been overlooked. And every week, I had a direct call with Lily Thompson to update her on our progress. Those calls became my lifeline, the one place where my expertise was respected without question, where I didn't have to fight to be heard. 3 months into implementation, something unexpected happened. Lily asked to meet me for coffee during her visit to our city. We met at a small cafe far from the Novatech offices, where she got straight to the point. "Your work on our system has been exceptional," she said after minimal small talk. "The implementation is ahead of schedule, and the early results are better than projected. But I'm concerned." "About the project?" I asked, confused.
"About you," she said.
"Every time we speak, I can sense the environment you're working in. It's not sustainable, Emma. Talent like yours shouldn't be constantly fighting for basic respect."
I didn't know what to say.
I'd become so accustomed to workplace hostility that I'd stopped seeing it as abnormal. "Can I be blunt?" she continued, not waiting for my response. "You're being wasted at Novatech. And based on what I saw in that presentation room, nothing's going to change there." She placed a business card on the table between us. Not her personal card this time, but one for Orion's CTO, David Chen. "We're building a new innovation division," she said. "David's looking for a director to lead it. Your name came up in our discussions." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "You want me to work for Orion?" "We want you to lead a team at Orion," she corrected, "with the appropriate title, compensation, and authority. No more fighting for scraps, Emma." The offer was extraordinary. Double my current salary, equity in the company, and a leadership role reporting directly to the CTO. It was everything I'd ever worked for, everything I'd been denied at Novatech. "I need to think about it," I said, my mind racing. "And there's the Novatech implementation to complete." "Of course," Lily said. "We're not asking you to leave your team hanging. Finish the implementation. But know that this door is open." I walked back to the Novatech office in a daze, the business card burning a hole in my pocket. For the first time in years, I felt something dangerous: hope. That hope carried me through the next 2 months of Tom's Cold War. Through the snide comments from colleagues who resented my new authority. Through the exhaustion of leading the implementation while being actively undermined. The system went live on schedule.